Our world depends on us. This presentation asks, must we change, can we change, and will we change? Must we change? Once destroyed, nature's beauty cannot be repurchased at any price. The gravest effects of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. We're seeing the same pattern all over the world, where communities of color and the disadvantaged are suffering the most from food and water shortages, pandemic disease, and displacement due to natural disasters and war. As we can see here, the U.S. contributed over 400 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions in 2018, more than double that of other industrial countries. These are just some of the costs of carbon. For the fourth year in a row, carbon has been designated the #1 threat to the global economy. Worldwide extreme weather catastrophes from storms, floods, and mudslides have significantly increased during the last decade. This supercell is becoming a far more common occurrence, and we're seeing rainfall that breaks all records. In 2019, there were approximately 820 natural disasters around the world, totaling about $150 billion, with only 1/3 of that covered by insurance. In the U.S., spring flooding alone caused about $20 billion in damages. During Hurricane Irene, rivers in at least 6 northeastern states reached 100-year flood levels. In the past 2 decades, the 10 worst floods have done more than $165 billion in damage and driven more than 1 billion people from their homes. As this graph shows, surface temperatures have been successively warming during the last 3 decades. 2019 had the second highest global temperature on record, and 2020 is on course to exceed last year. 2019 was Europe's hottest year on record, with these countries experiencing all-time temperature highs. Heat waves are becoming more and more frequent. Wildfires throughout the world are increasing in size, intensity, and duration, burning hotter and longer. Why? Because spring and summer are lasting longer with more extreme temperatures. Less snow and higher temperatures are resulting in drier vegetation. Lightning-induced fires have increased as the earth warms, and evidence suggests that climate change may cause more extreme winds that fan flames and spread fire. In Antarctica, ice melt is accelerating quite dramatically, resulting in increased sea levels. Dozens of countries are exposed to significant sea level rise, with nearly 1/3 of the world's population, or 2.4 billion people, living in coastal areas. NASA's estimate of the ice loss in Greenland shows that it is 4 times faster than originally predicted. It's not just people who are affected. We're in danger of losing half of all living species on Earth during this century. Warming is disrupting pollination, changing migration patterns, and pushing land-based plant and animal species into new territories. In the last 50 years, we've seen a 68% reduction in wildlife population as chemical pollution has caused severe damage to our rivers and lakes. And the destruction of natural habitats, especially in South and Central America, has significantly contributed to these wildlife losses. Here, we see that households and commercial businesses are the most significant contributors to food waste. So, can we change? Just look at this. 20 years ago, the best projections for wind energy were that we could reach 30 gigawatts by 2010. We beat that mark in 2010 and have increased it by 22 times over. Employment in wind power supports about 114,000 jobs in the U.S. and 1.2 million jobs around the world. And solar is even more dramatic. 18 years ago, best estimates were that we might install 1 gigawatt per year by 2010. Well, by 2010, we beat that by 17 times over. And in 2019, we beat it by 121 times over. In 2019, solar energy accounted for 57% of new renewable capacity, with 1.7 million households using off-grid, pay-as-you-go solar products in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. In the U.S., solar capacity accounted for nearly 40% of all new electricity capacity added, and it is projected to more than double over the next 5 years. Because the cost of solar cell modules has fallen by 99% over the last 4 decades. Solar is now cost competitive with conventional generation technologies, even without government subsidies. And the increased availability and reduced cost of energy storage is making renewable energy even more accessible and dependable. In transportation, we are seeing a massive shift to electric vehicles. We have the solutions at hand. Just think, in 1 hour we get as much energy from the sun as it would take to supply all of the world's electrical needs for a full year. Wind energy has the potential to supply the world's electrical needs 40 times over. Food waste can be reduced significantly through prevention, recovery, and recycling. Plastic usage can be minimized, but we have to insist on more, especially as it relates to packaging. Will we change? We're seeing businesses make changes. Over 240 global companies pledged to go 100% renewable, and more are coming on board. Although the total volume of electric vehicles is still low compared to traditional gas-powered vehicles, global sales grew by 46% in just the first half of 2019. Throughout the U.S., electric vehicle charging stations are becoming more available. Almost half of our states have formed the U.S. Climate Alliance. And 19 major global cities have committed to net zero carbon initiatives. Buildings alone account for about 50% of a city's total carbon emissions. Sustainable building design and materials can be implemented to reduce energy usage and carbon emissions. Plastic bag bans, fees, and other preemptive actions are underway in many states. Our world depends on us to refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose, repair, replant, and rethink our energy and consumable usage. Your world depends on it. Our children, our communities, and our world are counting on us to fight for our future with our voices, our votes, and our choices. Thank you for your attention. This presentation has been brought to you on behalf of Earth Water Alliance, 350 Vermont, and the Climate Reality Project.